Yo guys, on today's show we are talking to Matthew Gillet, an incredible painter and artist responsible for the works that we have here in the studio today. And we talk specifically about how art can be used as a conduit to talk about mental health issues in our society. Welcome to Dismantle. Really excited to have you on today. I noticed your artwork for the first time through Work Club Global, which is very much a corporate professional stylistic working community, but your art kind of immediately jumped out as something, I don't know, to me a little bit confrontational and different to that, but something that had a lot of depth and soul and pain to it. Yeah, I wanted to kind of explore that with you. I mean, yeah. Can you talk about this series that's currently here and what it's about?
I think one of the big things is that, and one of the things I think I would assume most artists go through it, and that is getting to a point where you need to work out why you paint. I paint for a few reasons. It's very grounding for me. It allows me to kind of sort out my emotional things through therapeutic strokes and oils on canvas at the end of the day. Along with that, I kind of discovered that one of the main reasons that I paint is to evoke emotion. And I think there's so much emphasis on evoking a positive emotion. You know, that's a great piece, or that piece makes me feel warm and fuzzy, or it makes me happy. But not everybody paints rainbows and fairy tales. So for me, coming to grips with the fact that any emotion evoked through my work is I'm doing my job as an artist, you know. So I kind of came across that accidentally in my gallery, and I had two older women looking at some of my work, and I had a beard and long hair, but in the photo in my gallery I had short hair and clean shaven. And so these ladies didn't know who I was, and they were making comments like, this guy needs some serious help, this guy's disturbed. And I kind of had this realization that that's just as powerful emotion to evoke. So if I can get anybody to stop in their day and form an opinion, whether it be I love it, I hate it, this guy's a hack, it's terrible, or he's extremely talented, or whatever it may be, then you're doing your job as an artist. So yeah, knowing that's my goal, just it leaves me open to really push the envelope in any direction that I want, and being comfortable enough in what my creativity is. There's no real boundaries for me to fit into any kind of box, or and I think everybody wants to put everybody in a box because it keeps everything safe.
It's safe, right? We're comfortable with boxes.
That's right. Once you realise that you don't have to play by the rules, and you just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah. Man, look, super interesting that you kind of speak about it that way now. I'm really interested in when that, because I imagine there was a switch that happened there in terms of, I did a bit of research on your story and why you started getting into painting and that initial push. And that reason seemed really introspective and quite personal. Can you talk about that? Because I think that's an amazing story about what you went through to start that. And then, was there a conscious time when you've gone, okay, well, this is the power that it has externally? Yeah, I think, I as a lot of people know the story, and, it was, and I got assaulted when I was a venue manager of the Annandale Hotel in Sydney. And that left me with a brain hemorrhage and a stint in hospital, and the repercussions of that were deep depression and anxiety, and just being very uncomfortable and not knowing that was something that would happen after having some kind of head trauma like that. Did you even realise that was the cause of it to begin with? No idea. I just felt shit all the time and didn't know why. So for me, it was just easier to stay busy and stay working and keep working harder and doing longer hours and doing whatever I can or could do to not have to sit in what it was, and that was that uncomfortableness of not knowing why I felt so bad. During that time, I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and she's quite a well-known New Zealand artist, and she was just like, why don't you just pick up the brushes and, get back into painting like you used to love it when you were younger. And I was kind of kept pushing that away as well, and then eventually I found myself in her studio, and 5-minute painting turned into 5 hours, and I just felt a little lighter. That led to a series called Peace Inside Anxiety, which I did end up doing a series of paintings, and had no real ambition to show them or have a show, but, you know, getting kind of spurred on and pushed by her and others around me were like, you know, this stuff's really cool, man, you should show it. So I decided to have a show, and then one person spoke to another person who spoke to the guy who was the arts writer for the Sydney Morning Herald, and then, you know, he rang up and said, let's do an interview. And I thought, yeah, let's just do an interview. And
Great.
I thought it'd be a 5-minute interview. We just kind of sat and chatted, and I just literally spilt my guts, you know, like I guess it was time. You know, and I think what happened there was once the top was taken off, it just kept falling out.
Yeah.
You know, 2 or 3 hours later, it was pretty much after like 18 months. It was the first person I'd really actually spoken to about how I felt and what was going on for me. And I didn't really think much about it afterwards. I remember being a little petrified afterwards because I had said so much. I didn't really know what I'd said.
Yeah.
And then thinking, oh my God, this is like, where will this go? What will he do with this?
Kind of embarrassed by it at all?
I was very embarrassed, yeah. I mean, you know, we're such, you know, well, I was brought up very old school, macho male Australian. And,
yeah, absolutely.
You know, you have no feelings. And so, you know, I felt very vulnerable. And then I remember the night before the Sunday paper came out, I was just a wreck, you know, like I couldn't sleep, and I was like, you know, is it going to be a big story? It's just going to be a small story? Is it going to be a blurb? Like, is it going to be a quote? Like, no idea. I remember I was living in Bronte at the time, and I remember walking up to the cafe that I always go to, and they have newspapers in there, and looking around and kind of wanting to find the newspaper, but not looking like I was looking for the newspaper, you know. And the guy behind the counter was holding up the front page of the Extra magazine. It was me on the cover.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, are you looking for this? And I was like, yeah, I am.
So it wasn't a little blurb.
So no, it ended up being like a cover story and 3 pages on the inside. And I think my initial response was just fear.
Really? Like before you even saw what was written?
Yeah. You know, I was just like, wow, this is kind of, you know, this is big.
Yeah.
But then what started to happen after that was I remember being in the street, and I had a mother stop me and say to me what I'd done was the bravest thing that she'd ever seen. And her son had committed suicide and hadn't spoken to anybody, and she said that she wished that her son had been able to read what I had said prior to him getting to the point where he felt that he couldn't talk to anybody. So that's kind of for me when the journey of like opening up those doors and making it okay to talk about that stuff, it just seemed like that was the path, you know. It was a no-brainer for me, and it was something that I found very liberating, and I found very healing for myself. And, you know, I just haven't looked back since then, you know. Like a lot of the work that I've done and shows that I've done have aligned with, you know, guys like Are You OK, and worked with Are You OK Day, and I've also been ambassador for those guys. I've been an ambassador for Beyond Blue, you know, and I just feel that being able to express myself in an artistic form, and then use that to showcase the story or let other people feel comfortable to talk about what they may be going through, it's just been, it's been a huge part of my healing, I think, you know, along with a lot of other personal stuff of coming to grips with what happened and understanding that, you know, shit does happen sometimes. And
do you still get anxious before talking about that to somebody?
Well,
do you still feel it?
For me now, you know, it changed the whole direction of my life into, you know, I now have spent 7 years learning to meditate and teaching meditation and using those tools to understand that ultimately how I feel is up to me.
Yeah.
For some people it's going to be different. It might be medication, it might be exercise. You know, for me it's no medication, but it's exercise and meditation.
Did you find when you started talking about it, a lot of people would give you their opinion?
Oh, 100%, you know. And I think that's good because, you know, with the more opinions that you have or the more options you have, the easier it is to find something that, you know, aligns with you. And I think that's the most important thing is finding something that aligns with you and that you can maintain. You know, there's no good setting these huge goals or huge... It's like getting a gym membership for 12 months and you go for the first week and then you never go back.
It's not a 3-month fix, is it?
It's a constant...
Change.
It is totally, you know. And, you know, I still have shitty days, you know, but they're less, and I know what I need to do in order to change that way of thinking, or, you know, and then go and picking a career as an artist and want to be economically viable.
Yeah.
Needs constant evaluation as well.
Absolutely. I think it might be important to note too, and I think a lot of the creatives that I've met, and myself included, like, doesn't need to be an event. Like, you had a very traumatic, specific thing that happened to you that caused a lot of this stuff. But I know a lot of people might just feel a certain way and not really know why, or if it's normal, or if anybody else is actually feeling like that as well. And it's really important to know that other people are feeling that way. And like you said, there are ways that you can find and develop things that are going to be useful for you. So yeah, it doesn't need to be an actual moment.
No, definitely. You know, like, I mean, life's tough. You know, like, right from the get-go, you know, you're set up to fail.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have any of those thoughts or feelings that come along that maybe, you know, chemically, and I think, you know, for me, yeah, I think if everyone just showed a little more compassion, just in general, you know,
Absolutely.
we all come from the same source. If you take the time, everybody's got something worth hearing, or, you know, or sharing, and everything's so fast-paced and frantic, and image is such a big thing. Behind the bravest faces sometimes are the most painful stories, or even
Absolutely.
just, and like you say, it doesn't need to be, you know, a lightning bolt event in your life. Sometimes you just feel like shit and don't know why, and so you know, any platform that we can get to where it becomes, if you've got a runny nose, you tell everyone you've got a runny nose and you don't come to work.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
It's the same attitude should be given to any kind of mental illness, you know, because
Absolutely.
we're all going through at some point we all go through our own version of hardship.
Yep.
It just depends on where we're at, what tools we have, and who we have around us at the end of the
Absolutely.
day.
Yeah. And I think compassion's a great word to use, because I think we all need that, you know, for those other people around it, and making people comfortable to say those kind of things. But I also think we can't forget to be compassionate to ourselves as well. How hard were you on it? Like, you know, why am I feeling this way? Do you feel like a weaker, lesser man? Just shut the fuck up and deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, how many of those internal conversations are we having?
Heaps, you know. Over 12 months of, like, just suck it up, you know. Just that internal voice of, like, it's going to be perceived as weak. The only way to overcome that is to share.
Yeah.
You know, once you share and people start to understand it, the more people start to open up.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that kind of threw me more than anything, was how prevalent it really was. Like, so many people that I wouldn't have even thought were getting in contact with me and wanting to chat or tell their version of their hardship, and, you know, people that I thought had everything, you know, cruised through everything, always seemed upbeat and heading in the right direction, were some of the ones that were struggling the hardest, you know. And it was only through conversations and compassion and understanding and really, like, opening up about that, a sense of relief, just like literally that the weight becomes lifted. You know, they say, you know, shared load is lighter to carry than, you know, carrying it around on your own. So,
and I'm kind of starting to see it now with social media, where there's a bit more of a need for vulnerability and kind of opening up on those platforms. Like, it was very much a kind of fronting thing. I think there's people now that are kind of opening up. And as much as I think that's caused a lot of anxiety, there are a lot of people on there that are kind of doing the opposite as well, and highlighting some of that stuff and making it easier to talk about things.
You know, maybe the shift will be that, you know, being honest and open will be the new cool, you know. Because it's, I mean, the other side of it's been done to death, right?
Absolutely.
So, you know, maybe honesty and authenticity along with compassion will be the new reward. That'd be really nice to see, wouldn't it?
It would be. How then did you, I guess, put a price on your work? Like, that's always a hard thing for artists.
If you're selling works and you're getting them valued and then you're keeping a record of that, you can start to build, you know, a price point, just like anything. But as a first-time artist, it's like, well, you got to find a kind of different way to look at it. And my advice to artists was, like, treat it like a business. You know, like, so when we had the pub, it was like, buy a beer, it costs $1, sell it for $3. So you got $1 to pay for the beer, $1 for your workers, and $1 for profit. Yeah. So times everything by 3. So if the work cost $100, sell it for $300. So at least you're not losing any money.
Yep.
And if ultimately all you want to do is keep creating, you need funds.
Yeah,
so what better way to keep the funds rolling in than working it like a business?
Yeah.
And then start to grow on that.
Yep.
As demand starts to come for your work and so on and so on.
Going back to the kind of using it like a business thing, that method of 100 versus 300 is a very practical, smart kind of like finance fundamentals. I like to think that at that point that evolves a little bit to what's the actual value to the person that is getting it. And like any business, I think it's key to look at, okay, what's the client, so the purchaser in this instance, what problem do they have, and then what's the solution that you're giving them.
Yeah.
And there's probably many problems for artists, but like, for example, why do you think people buy your work?
They buy it because it's evoked emotion in them. They want to share that.
Yeah.
And it's an avenue to share that emotion.
Great.
Or it's an avenue to share how they met me and the path that I've come along.
Yeah.
Which also in some way is lightening their own load. Like I said before, it's almost like tip, pass it on. So I think that's where the connection comes.
I think that's really powerful. You're almost having visual representation of what that person means to you or that connection means to you. And
and I get feedback from clients that have work in their house, and they're like, every time I have a party or a dinner party, it's the first thing that people want to talk about. What is that in there? And some people look at it and are horrified, like, how do you sleep at night having that in your house? But, it's just, I think it's the envelope, the art's the envelope to the discussion. What you're buying is, if you're buying something that's not mass produced, you're buying the essence of an individual, whether it's music or painting or drawing or theatre. And I don't know if it's just me, but if I go to the gallery and look at any Renaissance art, like, I'm moved.
Yeah.
The skill and the ability of what these guys are achieving is unbelievable.
Plus, there's an essence to it of being able just to stand still for a few minutes and look at something and experience, right? Like, I follow on my Instagram a whole lot of artists and different things, and no matter how amazing something is, there's just something about my thumb scrolling through everything, and it's like, that's great. 2 seconds, and it's gone. I think we're almost seeking out those opportunities now to have something textile.
For me also, with the gallery was to really break down those like old notions of how one should behave, and whether you went to an art school or whether you have any idea about anything, your opinion is still valid and is still worth forming one over a piece. You can like it because it's got lots of blue in it. That's enough. It doesn't have to have an over analytical version or take on, like, just like it or don't like it. Why don't you like it? Because I just think it's shit house. Right? That's, for me, there you go. That's fantastic. Or,
absolutely.
I like it because it's got lots of pink in it, and pink's my favourite colour.
Yeah, man.
That's enough. I mean, when I'm painting, I'm not thinking, how is this going to be perceived as far as like artistic credibility and style. Like, I have had to work through that emotion of going, you know what, this is just what I do. I remember being signed with a company and getting kind of, manipulated to them saying, maybe you should do stuff that's a little lighter, like, we think you could sell more stuff if you didn't paint so much emotion. Wow. And I remember giving it a go, and it was just like excruciatingly painful and impossible for me to do that.
It takes away your why, right?
It was just like, sure, I could do it, but it was just unnatural, and it just wasn't, it was terrible. I look at it and just went, whoa, I will quite often look at where I am if I'm having a moment where I'm not moving any work or there's nothing exciting is really happening. I have this like tendency to just, you should just give this away, mate, and go get a 9-to-5.
What stops you?
Well, I guess it's because I just wouldn't be happy doing anything else. It'd be a shame to not put out there what I put out there.
Yeah, I think there's a great amount of self-awareness in that, experimenting, finding what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Not being afraid to be that person.
Yeah.
And put it out there.
Yeah. I mean, even with all the successes that I've had, like I have to still remind myself, like we were talking about earlier, about, you know, focusing on the successes and holding them close.
Yep.
Because, you know, you'll have 9 successes and 1 failure, and you'll focus on the failure. Put around you the successes, whether you print them out and stick them around your studio, or to constantly remind yourself of those successes. You know, if you've sold 1 painting and it was sold for $10, you're a success, right? What do you measure success by?
Absolutely.
You know, success is to do something that you've created and evoke emotion in somebody else, whether it be singing, dancing,
yep,
or whatever it may be.
As long as we keep moving on that path to reach our potential, that's where happiness comes from.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome. Matthew, thank you so much.
Pleasure, mate.
Appreciate you being here.
No, it's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. We are trying to evolve a community here to share ideas and experiences to help each other learn, grow, and support each other as one. To help this movement, you can do 2 things right now. Send this to someone who you think needs to hear it, write us a review, and share it across your socials. And secondly, most importantly, go out there right now and be the best version of yourself that you can be. Be the change you want to see in the industry. You have the power to succeed and lift people up with your art, your words, and your soul. It will take hard work, but be that warrior badass that the world needs more of. Go out there and chase your true potential.